I'm going to start off just by giving a few numbers about the business, the licensing business, a little perspective on how it works, and then we'll break into a discussion. The great news for you today is that nobody here has a prepared presentation, so you don't have to sit through somebody's idea of what you want to hear about. We will have a bit of a discussion among ourselves, but I want you at all points to raise hands. I believe I'm not sure if there are microphones that will circulate for Q&A, but whoever has the microphone, I would like you to keep them on their toes so that at any point during the discussion, please feel free to join in and ask your own questions. And we'll try to hear you over the construction that's going on behind us, apparently. So the licensing business, let me ask you so that we know up here, how many of you own brands? Wow, okay. How many of you are manufacturers or service providers who might want to become licensees? Okay. Any retailers out there? Okay, so that's who our audience is. That's who we're talking to. Of those of you who own brands, how many of you are in the entertainment business, in the entertainment sector? Okay. Or characters, okay. What about a corporate brand? Sports? Fashion? Other? Lots of others. Okay. I'm not sure how to designate the others, but okay, so now we know who you are. You've heard who we are. The licensing business worldwide, globally, according to LIMA's most recent survey, accounts for about $241 billion, that's with a B, in retail sales, accounted for that in 2014. About 55% of that was in the U.S. The U.S. has always been by far the largest market in the licensing business. Partly it's because of the consumer culture, partly it's because of the very well-developed retail structure in the U.S. There are a lot of manufacturers in the U.S., so there are a lot of reasons, but the U.S. has traditionally been about 55% of the global business. India, we judged, according to last year's survey, at approximately $1 billion, which is very, very tiny in terms of the global business of $241 billion, but still has grown significantly over the past several years. And the way things are moving, it promises to grow more. There's a rising middle class in India. There's more disposable income that people can spend on goods that they desire rather than need, because a lot of licensing business is built around what I refer to as wanna-haves, not necessarily gotta-haves, the basics that one needs for everyday life. So India is very much on the upswing, and we expect that to continue. The largest sector in the licensing business globally is the entertainment and character sector, which is somewhere between 40 and 45% of the business. That's everything from Disney and Warner Brothers to smaller characters and entertainment properties from around the world. The major sources for those characters are the US, Japan, with a lot of the anime characters, the UK, Scandinavia has birthed several characters, and of course in every market around the world there are lots of locally developed characters who have an affinity. They're part of the culture, as we know Chota Bheem is in India. So the entertainment character sector is the largest sector. The second largest sector is the corporate brand sector, where somebody like a Procter & Gamble will take one of their brands. Let's say there's a well-known US brand called Mr. Clean. They make cleaning fluids and such, and marketed very widely. They wanted to get into the mop and broom business. Well, P&G doesn't want to make mops and brooms. However, they found somebody who does make those kinds of products. They licensed their brand to that mop and broom maker, and it's a good business for all. So the corporate brand sector is the second largest sector in the about 20 to 25% of the global business. Then there's the fashion sector, also at about 20%. We have Rocky S. up here who'll be talking about what he's doing in the fashion sector. Fashion brands often make, fashion designers often manufacture on their own only a few core categories of merchandise, and then they will license others in order to make some of the other categories in both fashion or fashion accessories or associated products going forward. Then there's the sports sector, one of the most popular sectors, one of the things that people think about when they think about licensing. It is the fourth largest sector in the business, about $18 billion in 2014. And one of the great things, the sports sector is one of the ones that is most attuned, and we're talking a little bit about retail here, is most involved with e-commerce. Because if I am a New York Yankees fan living in Delhi, I'm probably going to have trouble finding a retailer to buy New York Yankees merchandise from, or Manchester United, or Barcelona. However, I know that I can go online, and we refer to them as displaced fans. So the e-commerce is probably a more important factor in the sports segment than in most others. In terms of merchandise categories, the largest sector in licensing is apparel, whether it's entertainment licensed apparel or fashion licensed apparel. That is the largest sector. The second largest sector is toys, and a lot of that, of course, goes back to the entertainment and character sector of the business. In the presentation I gave across the hall, the opening presentation, there's a word I like to use when I talk about licensing. Licensing was once explained to me, and I spent 30 years as a journalist. Licensing was once explained to me as the Attorney's Full Employment Act. It's a very legalistic business with lots of contracts. However, and you can come up with all sorts of very legal definitions of what licensing is, about you're leasing the right to use a trademark or a character or a logo or a brand and apply it to a product. You're responsible for making the product, for designing the product, for getting it approved by the IP owner. But that's the basic way that licensing works. But I think any of these gentlemen up here will tell you that whatever your brand is, it can be a fashion brand, you can have a celebrity, you can have a character. It doesn't mean anything unless it produces some emotion in the consumer. The consumer has to care about it. The consumer has to say, that's my sense of humor. They might identify because that's my favorite team. They might identify, wow, that's a great looking design. There are lots of, I trust that brand. Trust is an emotion. But unless a logo or a design or whatever evokes some emotion, you've really got nothing. There's no reason that any of you out there as licensees should license a brand unless there's a core of consumers that care about it. There's no reason, if you're a brand owner, that you have a chance of succeeding in licensing unless there are consumers who you can make care about your brand or character. So with that premise, what I'd like to do is ask each of the panelists to just give a couple of minutes of what they're doing in the business right now, how they're involved in the licensing business. We'll just start with that. So Rocky, could you talk about what you do? And I guess, yeah, let's go with the mics.
Hello. So basically, I've been designing clothes for the past 20 years. I've done almost styling for 350 Bollywood films. So probably last year I had a conversation with Shopper Stop, and I launched my new brand called RS by Rockstar 3 months ago. And we are selling in 60 stores right now all across India, with categories from deodorants to underwear, wallets, belts, shoes, bags, and apparel for men and women both. It's a great tie-up between me and shoppers because they are really great retail head right now in the country. And they're very happy to launch another brand with me called RS Jeans, which shortly by spring summer will be launching a jeanswear line called RS Jeans, more on a casual streetwear kind of a line.
Okay. Will the second brand, will that also be through Shopper Stop?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So as of now, my main licensing is done with Shopper Stop, but I'm yet looking for a higher end brand called Rockstar Luxury Pret to be licensed out in different categories.
Okay. Gaurav?
Yeah, hi, my name is Gaurav and I do the viral videos. I don't know how many of you have seen those. You've seen those? Yes. Oh, all right, okay. Shopkeeper. Hi, so this is the series I do. I started on the internet and the videos somehow went viral. So in fact, the first interviews that happened for me were in Pakistan, then they were traveled to Dubai, and then the interviews started happening in India. So after a lot of people realized that it could possibly be a brand, even I thought that. So this is the tie-up I have with Bradford. We in fact I want to reach people's houses because they have given so much of love and the videos appeal to everybody basically, from the kid, from the child to the older people. And I've cracked deals with TV, Big Magic and Big Radio both. So they're on TV and radio. And I just did a deal with the Hike Messenger, which is the chat app. So they're gonna do the stickers also. So a lot of things are e-business is what I'm looking at, and an app which is a bobble app, which gives me the head figures, the wigs, and the boy, girl, because I have the whole family ready of the shopkeeper and chutki basically. So I'm planning to do more in that.
Okay. Samir?
Yeah, hi. Green Gold as a company, we started and we are basically a content producer. So the idea was to create quality content for the Indian kids, wherein we could inculcate our culture, our ethics, our moral values of our society through a medium of entertainment, which was basically cartoons. And when the whole thought came between me and Rajiv way back, there was hardly any localized content on air. So, producing an original IP and TV series or a theatrical was economically not viable. Typically, the revenue pie, if we look at, if you have a content produced, the revenue from the content would be not more than 40, 45, 50%, and the balance 50% essentially needs to come from licensing, merchandising, and so on and so forth. So we went ahead and we started producing content, bleeding on the way. But there was a vision that once we get established, once the characters get established, we would soon generate the revenue from the licensing and merchandising bit as well. So in about 5-6 years, when the content was produced, got on air and got recognition, is when we started focusing on the licensing piece. Licensing in India, the Indian business mind frame is a little different than what is in US or elsewhere, because I still remember the first time I thought I must sell a license of Chhota Bheem, and I made a cold call to one of the prospective licensees. He literally laughed on me. He says, you expect me to pay you money for your character and then invest money in the molds for making products, and then I do not know whether it will sell or not. Take all that risk and pay you money. And what am I doing? I am eventually making your character more popular. And yes, he was right in his own way. But then the thought is that is what is basics of licensing, is what is the first line of our discussion, is that once a brand has a fan following, has a following because of, like Martin said in his speech and the earlier conference, it's connected with the emotions. So if I am connected to a character or a thing emotionally, I'm obliged, I'm kind of more motivated to pick up a product which is based on that character. And that is where I see potential of growth in terms of sales from a similar product which is non-branded and a branded product. And that's where the money to be paid to the IP owner is justified. It took us almost like 4 years now, and right now Chhota Bheem, Mighty Raju, and some of the other shows which Green Gold produces, they are practically there everywhere in India. And I'm happy to share in this platform that Chhota Bheem is one of the first Indian IPs which has also been licensed internationally, since the show has gone international as well. So we are present in almost like 12 countries. The show is doing very well, and the licensing bit from India has gone international also. So yeah, licensing is a very big business, both from the point of view of the licensor as well as the licensee.
The first licensee that you presented to who laughed in your face, did you eventually sign that company as a licensee?
He's my biggest licensee today.
How long did it take to sign him up?
So what we did was to convince him that what we meant, we mean it. So we produced the merchandise which he was making on our own, and we produced the merchandise, we invested money in it, and we started selling it in the market. And he noticed that we were competing with him, and his sales were coming down and our sales were getting up. So then he said, yes, you are right. Will you give me the license now? I said, yes, this is why this was done.
What's the biggest lesson that you have learned so far? You say it took 5 or 6 years of Chhota Bheem being around before you were able to start licensing. What's the biggest lesson that you have learned so far along the way of best practices well, let me ask you in two thoughts. One is when you're looking at licensees, or a licensee comes to you, what have you learned about what makes a good licensee? There are I noticed a lot of hands went up of manufacturers. What makes a good licensee?
3 things essentially. Passion to be quality conscious, because at the end of it, I'm dealing with a brand, and there are certain brand values, attributes to every brand or a character. The licensee needs to understand the nuances of that, and we need to assess as a licensor that it's not about putting a logo on the t-shirt. No. There is so much more thought behind that process. Who's my target customer? It's a kid. For me, it's a kid of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I must know what are his likes, dislikes, what would help him, what would not harm him. That's one. 2, the distribution, the marketing strength he has, existing, or he has the potential to set it up. And 3rd, of course, would be the manufacturing or the sourcing capabilities.
Mm-hmm. What about retail relationships?
Yeah, that's part of the distribution.
That's the distribution, yes. Okay. Rocky, you mentioned that your first 2 lines are with Shopper Stop, but that you're planning a higher end line. When you're going to be looking at potential licensees,
Right.
how do you evaluate? What kinds of things are you looking for in a company as a potential licensee?
As he said, these are the points really very, very important, but understanding the brand and the philosophy behind the brand is very important. I come with a whole lot of creative ideas. I come with a whole lot of quality and the kind of philosophy which I believe in as a designer. That person needs to understand completely where I'm coming from. Of course, most important is trust, because I need to trust the brand, the manufacturer and the licensee. It's very important for me to do that. We are looking at a lot of category, and worldwide it's been a very good trend with designers licensing out their names for quite a few categories. Sorry. Okay, I've got
That usually happens to me. Okay.
right.
Okay. Actually, many years ago, I made the big speech that every moderator makes, which is, will everybody out there please turn off the ringers on your cell phones? And about halfway through the panel, somebody's phone went off and back, and nobody moved to, from their pocket and all that. And it turns out my briefcase had my phone in the back of the room, and I was the one. So, Gaurav, what are you hoping to accomplish? You're very new to the licensing business.
Yes, everybody is a senior over here. I see, I can learn so much from him, from the experiences they've had. Yes, there's so much to learn.
We'll send you a bill later, for consulting. But you're new to the business. You got into the business in a limited way so far. But what is it? Just about money? Is it about connecting with fans in a different way? What are you trying to accomplish as a licensor, as a brand?
See, definitely money plays a huge part, for sure. But yes, I also want people to take home what they have liked on TV, on radio, on the videos that I make. If people have liked that, I want them to be able to take it home with them. And the kids should have those, because I have seen dub smash that the kids make of my videos. The parent and the kid are making it together, and I know it appeals to the child. I want to give him something that, okay, this is for you, you keep it. So things like that, that's what I plan to achieve out of this.